So today's topic is really exciting, and it's something that's very dear to my heart. So coaching skills for leaders, executives, and managers. So this is something which is really, really important, especially in today's very volatile, turbulent, and challenging times. And it actually doesn't matter whether you are a leader, an executive, or a manager. If you are just a normal team member, you're a supervisor, you're an intern, you're a graduate, you're a junior staff member, it doesn't matter how senior or how junior you are. Coaching skills is something which we can use for the rest of our lives. So it's not just a career or professional skill, it is a life skill as well, because coaching is all about influence. And when you deal with humans, not just in a workplace, but also in a personal or family setting, you will be exerting some form of influence to them. So whether it's with your kids, whether it's with your parents, whether it's with your partners, your peers, your housemates, your friends, and all that. So this is something which we can all take away from. All right, so before we jump into the materials, which we have a bit to cover, just some housekeeping rules just to make sure that we are all on the right page. All right, so first and foremost, make sure you take down notes. So make it an intentional habit to take down notes for whatever session or event which you attend. So whether it's scribbling something on a physical notepad or a notebook, or if you have a digitalized version on your tablet or on your laptop right now, just feel free to do that, because you want to capture those learning moments. Some things might be on the slides, some things might not be. We might go off on a tangent to explore certain ideas. We might go down a rabbit hole as well. So we never know where we could end up. And what you want to do is to actually capture those learning insights and those nuggets. All right, the next thing which we want to do is to engage and to ask questions. So I've got two screens here. I've got the chat box open. So if there's any questions or anything that comes to mind, you can either, if you're comfortable, feel free to unmute yourself, or if you want, you can pop in something into the chat. And that is something which I want us to do as we go along, because I'll be asking us a few questions, and definitely keen to hear your input on that. And last but not least, give it your 100%. So sometimes it's tempting to open a secondary tab to look at something else, but if we want to get the most out of this session, so let's really appreciate your focus and all of your attention in this. All right, so time to get some interaction going. The first question which I have is, where are you tuning in from? So feel free to pop it into the chat. So definitely keen to see where the geographical makeup of our audience. So Birmingham, welcome. Norway, UK, London, Dublin. Sally's from Melbourne as well. I'm also from Melbourne. Dublin, very nice, very nice. Cool. So wherever you are, good afternoon, good evening, good morning to you. Really nice. Really nice to have this opportunity where we can just dial in from the comforts of our offices or from our homes. All right. So really, really appreciate this opportunity. So thanks so much for popping in your input. So the next thing which I want us to do is, as we go through some of the content and materials, if we've come across an insight or a revelation, so something that might be refreshing to yourself, feel free to pop in AHA in the chat box. All right, so I always like to observe people's responses and reactions to certain things that we might cover. And then if it's something a bit more intense or dramatic, feel free to pop in OMG. So if it's something which you've done, you've not been doing right all this while, if it's a tight slap on the face, a reality check, and all that, feel free to pop in OMG. So sometimes there could be truth bombs that might be shared. So feel free to do that as well. All right. Cool. So just a quick one about myself. If you're wondering who is this person dialing in from the other side of the world. So my name is Dominic. I've been working with the iconic offices for the past few years. Always a privilege and pleasure to be working with go-getters, hustlers, people who are really passionate and ambitious about success. So I had a chance to speak on a TEDx stage twice in Melbourne, definitely before pre-COVID. Currently, I'm working as the people and culture manager for a digital transformation agency called OSF Digital. Had a chance to speak across the globe, over 12 countries and 12 plus cities. And that was when I managed to do a physical workshop and meet the team in person in the Dublin office for iconic offices. And then I've been featured on a couple of media outlets. I got a chance to coach clients from EY, Deloitte, and ANZ Bank at different seniority levels. During COVID, I managed to get my careers counseling accreditation as well. Served in the Singapore military, and then on the side, I'm an author. I love long distance endurance running. That's a story for another day on the topic of resilience. And I also do a lot of trading on the crypto options and stock market. So this is something which I really love to do. These are some of the previous organizations and current organizations I'm working with. So top left-hand side is TEDx stage in Melbourne. Top right-hand side is with the mid-level managers and some of the engineers in the Melbourne office for Tesla. Bottom left-hand side is the Google office based in Singapore. And then bottom right is one of my most, my favorite ones. So that was part of the African Youth Leadership Summit that was held in Marrakesh a couple of years ago. So always a privilege and pleasure to share insights, knowledge, ideas, mental models, frameworks, toolkits and all that with people from across the globe, from different industries, different walks of life, different backgrounds. And as much as I'm talking a lot today, I'm also learning from us. So feel free to chime in, feel free to chip in at any point in time, because this is our safe space. It is our safe environment to learn from one another. Okay, so let us jump in straight into the materials. So some of the things which we'll be covering today is number one, why is coaching important? So why is it so crucial? Why is it so instrumental in this day and age? And then number two, we would just want to briefly unpack what is our idea of coaching. Is it counseling? Is it mentoring? Is it consulting? Is it teaching? Is it knowledge transfer? What is it actually? Number three, we're going to cover some of the coaching styles which we might already be doing. All right, so some of these things might be familiar to some of us. Some of it might be new. Some of it might be a reminder for all of us. So it's really important for us to refresh our knowledge and just be very intentional about this. Number four, we're going to talk about this thing called the GROW model, which you can use when you are delivering a coaching session yourself. So whether it's with a direct report, whether it's with a peer, whether it's with your kids, you know, whether it's with the intern, or whether it's someone whom is looking up to you as a role model. All right. And then number five, some of the best practices to bear in mind when we are exercising our coaching capabilities, not just in the workplace, but also in our own lives as well. Okay. So first section, why is coaching important? So for this section, I'm going to show us a series of images, pictures, and photographs. And it is your job to tell me what it means to you, what ideas come to mind. All right, when we look at the pictures in light of coaching. All right, so it is time to open up your keyboards, open up the chat box and pop in something. All right, so pop in what comes to mind. So why is coaching important? The first slide, this. Okay, so we can see the coronavirus, and we can see this person maybe trading Bitcoin. Hopefully he didn't put all of his life savings into it. We can see riots and protests. We can see the Ukrainian crisis. We can see Wall Street. We can see pollution. We can see climate change, most likely. What comes to mind when we see all these pictures in lieu of coaching? Any ideas? Okay, so Amy says unexpected changes and being ready to deal with that. Yes, that is amazing. Anyone else? If it's easier, feel free to unmute yourself as well. Alexandra says preventing misinformation. That is correct as well. There are so many sources of news and information. Matthias says how to handle unexpected events. That is true. So we can see there are a couple of common themes in these pictures. So things like disasters, uncertainty, volatility, turbulence, disruption even, so we can see that the world is very complex. It is very unpredictable. We definitely live in very interesting and challenging times. So yes, coaching is definitely important to help one another navigate through change and uncertainty. So where if a crisis happens, definitely coaching comes to play in order to align the rest of the team, in order to make sure that everyone's on the same page. Information, even though it might be limited, is at least distributed consistently and clearly. All right, so preventing misinformation, being ready to deal with changes, handling unexpected events. Yeah, this is very real. So not just in a global context, but even on the organizational level as well. So in your own companies, there might be lots of changes. There might be downsizing, offshoring, outsourcing, restructuring, redundancies, transfers, and all that. So change is definitely the only constant. And in order to navigate through change and to thrive in the midst of change, definitely coaching is very essential. All right. So thanks so much for sharing that. Next pictures. Let's go. So what comes to mind? So this person is climbing a cliff or a mountain. This is a skyscraper. And these are people who seem to be having a lot of fun. What comes to mind? Individual journey versus team building. Thanks so much for that. Michaela says motivated teamwork. So what about this person climbing the mountain? What has coaching? Yes. So Sally says achievements and goals. Yes, that is correct. Reaching a summit. That is so true. All right. So first picture, what we can see, what we can deduce is reaching a goal. Reaching the summit, getting to the top of the mountain. It is a very challenging and sometimes it might be insurmountable, but definitely something worth climbing towards, like what you've mentioned, Matthias. And then the skyscraper, building something up from scratch, from nothing into something that's very remarkable and magnificent, right? And then the third picture, connection, community, teamwork, camaraderie, and all that. So what we can see here is that all these things do not happen by accident. All right. So if you're taking down notes, write this down. Failures can happen by accident, but success has to be intentional. All right. So for example, if you're climbing a mountain, you can definitely fall down the mountain by accident. All right. You can slip and fall and you are rolling down the hill. Okay. But if you want to get to the peak of the mountain, it has to be an intentional and deliberate effort. You cannot reach the summit of the mountain by accident. All right. So whatever goals, aspirations, dreams or objectives which you have, it has to be very deliberate and intentional. So that is where coaching comes into play as well. Whether you are coaching and leading yourself, getting yourself out of bed, heading into the gym and all that, or whether you're coaching a team to get them to success, working towards a common shared goal. All right. So all these things have to be very, very intentional. Okay, next set of pictures. Lots of people exercising. What comes to mind? Or why is coaching important once again? How does coaching play out? So Alexandra says personal development. Matthias says training towards the bigger goal. Correct. Exactly. So we can see that all these people are very high performers. They might be Olympians, they might be elite athletes, the cream of the crop in their field. So even the best, if the best of the best have coaches, to guide them, to hold them accountable, to push them towards what they're truly capable of, what about us? So if people already see the point in having a coach for high performance, then what more should we also do it for ourselves? So like the previous slide, we mentioned that success doesn't come by accident. High performance doesn't come by accident as well. It has to be deliberate and intentional. All right. So whether it's achieving the gold medal, setting a world record, hitting your personal best, or doing something that's really proud for yourself, for your country, definitely coaching comes into play. Right? Because if we want to really reach a higher level of performance, there is only so much we can do ourselves. We might need a coach, we might need a mentor to help show us the way. Okay, very nice. Next picture. What is this? What is this truck and people standing within these yellow shapes? What do you think is this? Can anyone guess? Team collaboration, not so true. Visibility. Okay, so you're onto something, Michaela. Okay, so when you're learning how to drive a car, they say that it's not just enough to look through. Yes, there you go. That's the keyword, blind spots. Yeah. So when if we recall our driving lessons, our instructor always tells us to not just look through the wing mirrors, but also look over our shoulders because of the blind spots. Exactly right. So these sections are literally the blind spots of a truck, and the truck driver, from where he is, even though he might be at a vantage point, he won't be able to see the people in those zones. All right, it's quite shocking actually. So much blind spots for this massive vehicle in itself. So just as vehicles have blind spots, humans also have blind spots. So hope this is an aha moment for some of us. So whether you're a manager, whether you're leading a team, or whether you're being part of the team, everyone has blind spots because we don't know what we don't know. There are some things which we think that we are really good at, but we aren't actually are. There are some things which we might not be even aware of. All right, so therefore, being in a team, having a coach helps us to identify and realize those blind spots and make sure that we cover as much bases as possible. Okay, so we can see here that coaching is really crucial, just to recap, because success is never intentional. High performance has to be deliberate. And also, we all have blind spots. So coaching helps us to at least mitigate the risk of those blind spots. Okay. Cool. So what is coaching? Next section. So this is a very quick one. So can anyone tell me what is your idea of coaching? When we talk about this word, what comes to mind? Is it teaching? Is it mentoring? What is your idea of coaching? Developing someone's skills? Thanks for that, Emily. What picture comes to your head? Mentoring people to develop someone based on their needs. That is correct as well. A trainer trying to mentor an individual or team to reach their goals. Yes, giving encouragement, support, guidance, and all that. So those are definitely hit the nail on the head. Those are definitely aligned to the idea of coaching. But if we really dig into the foundations of coaching itself, what is one perspective which we can get to look at coaching, right? So according to Sir John Whitmore, so if you're wondering who Sir John is, he is one of the most prominent thinkers and thought leaders in the areas of leadership and organizational development. So his definition of coaching is unlocking people's potential to maximize their own performance. Yes, correct. So raising potential, unleashing capabilities, unlocking, enabling, and all that. All right. So unlocking people's potential to maximize their own performance. So this is the heart of coaching, is to allow people to become their best selves. All right. So whether it's through instruction, whether it's through pastoral care, whether it's through training, whether it's through guidance, whether it's through knowledge sharing, whether it's through mentoring. All right. Those are means to an end. Right. So at the heart of it is helping people to become their best selves. Right. So whenever you are in a coaching situation with your client or a recipient, always think of how you can help to unleash that person's potential. Okay, cool. So the next part, we're going to get more tangible and practical, because I always love to be practical. I always prefer to have a bias towards actionable and practicable steps. Right. So some of the coaching styles which we might or might not be aware of, sometimes you might already be doing this in your workplace. Okay. So a very simple framework which we can use. So 2 axes. On the vertical axis is transactional involvement, all right? And then the horizontal axis is transformational involvement. So what do we mean by transactional involvement? So anything that's transactional mainly involves, like it says here, transactions. So have you done this? Is this up to speed? Have you hit your sales targets? So it's very objective, it is very rational, it's very tangible, it's very specific and measured. So whenever you have, maybe if you're a manager, if you have your one-on-one stand-ups with your team, if you have your stand-ups with your team, you have your one-on-one with your direct reports, many times you might have very transactional and operational conversations with your direct reports. So have they hit their sales targets? Are they up to speed? Any blockers, any challenges, any highlights? And then if so, what can be done about it? What has been done? What has been tried? And all that. So it's pretty much very, very transactional, not very inspirational or aspirational, but still very essential, right? Because we need to get the job done. It's we need to deliver value. We need to deliver results. Okay, so transactional involvement. The next one over here is transformational involvement. So what this means is basically asking them, instead of just talking about things which you do with your hands, you actually go deeper. It involves their goals. It involves their potential. It involves their aspirations. It involves more of the, you tend to uncover more deep-seated issues. So if transformational questions include things like, are you happy in your job? Do you like doing what you do? Are you satisfied when you deliver an outcome for the customer? Is this career path something that is aligned to your values? What are your values? Have you taken the time to identify what you value right now? What are some things which you're looking for in the next 12 months, 24 months, 36 months? All right, so these are kind of maybe more transformational, more spiritual, more aspirational, right? So there is a time and place for that as well. Okay, so if you are coaching someone or coaching a team, these are 2 levers which you can use. All right, and some of us might already you're already using this. It depends on what degrees. Right, so if we break it down into 4 quadrants, you can have high transactional involvement and low transformational involvement, high transaction, high transformation, low transaction, low transformation, or low transaction, high transformation. Okay. If it's too many words, I will walk us through every single one of this to break it down so that it makes more sense. Okay. So directive, passive availability, trusted advisory, and non-directive. Right. So directive is when you are highly transactional, but almost none on the transformational side of things. Passive availability is low on both transaction and transformation. Non-directive is high on transformation, but low on transaction. And then high on both scales are trusted advisory. Okay, so let me just unpack each one to us. All right, so the first one is directive. And this is something which we might already be doing very, very frequently, whether we know it or not, okay? So high transaction, low transformation is pretty much command and control. Tell and sell mentoring. So if you are the expert, if you're the subject matter expert in your field, and then you are coaching someone who is more junior than yourself, if you're doing a lot of knowledge transfer, sharing your wisdom, your expertise, right? Like this is how you do this, this, and that. If you are being very instructional, then that will fall into directive coaching. Right, so it's very operational, like we mentioned. So like when you check in with the team to see if they are on track with their goals, their targets, making sure that everything is on track. It is very no nonsense. And this is also an interesting point. Crisis mode, damage control. Can anyone tell me how this comes into play? Any thoughts about that one? Why is directive coaching relevant to controlling damage and managing a crisis? Okay, so let's see. So straight to the point, clear communication, evaluate the risk, minimize damage involved. Correct. So Matthias has raised a very, very good point because things have to be solved quickly. Yes, there is. And Karen, yes, correct. There is no time for debate. We need quick, fast, decisive action. That is so true. If the building is on fire, there is no time to sit down and consult with people to see how they feel, to ask them about what they think about the fire that is coming and the smoke that's billowing and all that, right? If it is crisis, we need to take action fast. We control the damage, we manage the risks, and then we get everyone to safety as much as possible. Yes, so Matthias says, I know this from experience after serving in the military. I agree as well. So if we are faced with a contingency, if the mission goes south, then yes, directive control or coaching, it just comes into play. Like this is the situation on the ground. This is the screw up. This is the mistake. This is the blow up. This is what it is, you know. And then this is what we're going to do about it, right? So do this. Then once we are in the clear, then we can sit down, take a breather, and then re-evaluate. But in the meantime, you know, strap on your seatbelts, do what you're told, do what you're being trained to do, and then just make sure it's done. Okay, so it is very direct, literally. Okay, so very high on transaction, low or no on transformation. Right, so directive coaching. There is a time and place for that. Okay, so that's the first one. The next one is passive availability. This is quite interesting. All right, so this is very low on transaction and also very low on transformation. So this is pretty much like not doing much actually. sometimes doing nothing at all. So getting out of their way. And this is relevant if you already have team members who are high performers. If everything is working like clockwork, people know their jobs really well, they are doing things really well, it is a well-oiled machine, then please don't get in their way. All right, so I call this passive availability because you are not actively involved in their day-to-day duties and operations and responsibilities and all that, but you are still available to them. All right, so pretty much saying to them that, you know, if you need anything, I'm here. All right, so let me know if you need any tools, support, training, resources, but I will not get in your way. Okay, sometimes this comes into play if it's outside your remit, outside your responsibility, outside your skill set. If, for example, if you have a new direct report, if you're a manager in your marketing department, and if you have a new direct report who is a legendary programmer for your marketing automation software, and if you feel that there isn't much you can coach him or her pertaining to their technical skills, then it's perfectly fine. There is there is no harm. There is nothing wrong in taking a step back. All right. So if you feel that it's better for someone else to coach that person because someone else has more experience, someone else has more expertise, then pass it on. All right. So we don't have to solve all problems. We don't have to do everything. We don't have to coach the whole world. All right. This is the takeaway. So depending on the situation as well. So sometimes it really pays to just take a step back and let people do what they know best. Okay. So only interfere and intervene if necessary. Okay. So low transaction, low transformation. This is number 2. So let's go on to number 3. So the third one is non-directive. So this is low on transaction and high on transformation. Okay, so non-directive coaching. So this is more pastoral. It is more like a counselor, more consultative, right? Active listening, asking the right questions, trying to problem solve together, bouncing off ideas, picking their brains, asking them what they think of certain things. In a way, it's also more collaborative, right? So if you are sitting down and planning the career roadmap for your direct report, like how they see themselves in this role in the next 30, 60, 90 days, or in the next quarter, the next half of the year, or in the next year, and if you want to create like a growth path for them, then non-directive coaching comes into play. So it's more of bouncing ideas back and forth with each other rather than you telling them what to do. So this is very pretty much a process of discovery for both parties. Okay, so very little on the transactional side of things. Is more about the transformation. Like we mentioned, the core definition of coaching is to unlock people's potential. So when you are coaching them, you are in the business of transformation as well. So how can you actually transform? What are some transformational experiences, things which we can do together so that that person can become the best at what they do or the best at what they want to do? All right, so this is non-directive coaching. Okay. And last but not least, the fourth one, trusted advisory. So this sits high on the transactional as well as the transformational side. All right, so this is pretty much the best of both worlds between directive and non-directive coaching. All right, so this comes into play when trust has already been established, for example, with your direct report. And then this is where you can actually take it up a notch. So you've already identified the goals, you've already identified what they are looking to achieve. Now it's working out a strategy holding them accountable, being there with them, identifying and leveraging opportunities, coming up with a plan of attack. So what are the next action steps? What is our strategy? And this is where we also get to be more focused on results and performance, because we actually want to make things happen, right? So non-directive, it's maybe having a two-way conversation to uncover more of that person's aspirations and what they're looking for. All right. So once that is pretty much solidified and established, then we can transit into the trusted advisory phase. So pretty much you are working with them to help them achieve and realize the goals. Okay. So 4 styles of coaching. Okay, so just to recap, transactional involvement, transformational involvement, directive, passive availability, non-directive, and also trusted advisory. All right, so depending on the situation, we might use one over the other. Depending on the needs of the person, we might use one over the other, depending on the, so it's very circumstantial and very situational. So can anyone tell me if there are any managers in this room, or you're leading your enterprise, your company, or your team? Would anyone want to share like which one they use the most frequently? And then also which one you feel that is an area of opportunity for yourself to go into? Okay, so Matthias says non-directive style. Okay, that's really good. So like some people are very transactional, they just want to get into business. Like, has this been done or not done? And then we move on. So they're really like a straight shooter. But some people, they are very good at having deeper and more meaningful conversations. But the danger with that, if we stay in the non-directive side for too long, nothing much, we can end up going around in circles and sometimes into certain rabbit holes. All right, so we got to be aware of your own style and where you tend to lean towards, where you're more comfortable with, but also be aware that there are different styles available. Right, so the more tools we have in our toolkit, the more effective leaders will be. Right, so Emily says mostly non-directive, personal. Yep. So Emily needs to be more directive. Exactly. Yeah. So understand where your strengths are and also where are the areas for opportunity and growth. Cool. So thanks so much for sharing those. Really appreciate all of our input. So let's just shift gears into the grow model. All right. So credit to Sir John once again. So this section, the previous section, we talked about the styles of coaching. Depending on the situation, we might be using one over the other. In this section on the grow model, this is something practical, which you can do in the coaching session itself. All right, so let us break this framework down. So the grow model is basically comprising of 4 components. So the goal, the reality, the options, as well as the will. Okay, so what do all these mean? So essentially the goal is, what are the things which we want to accomplish immediately? All right, so not really in the grand scheme of things, not the big picture, but in the conversation right now. So when you're in a coaching call with your client or with your direct report, ask yourself, or even ask the person, what would they want to achieve by the time they walk out of the door, by the time we finish the meeting, by the time we finish the session. Right? So sometimes they want something very direct. They just want your support. They want your advice. They want your opinion on things. Or maybe they just want to bounce around some ideas with you. Yeah, okay. So identify the immediate goal. That is the most important, because we need to have an agenda for the session in order for it to be the most effective, right? So always make sure that we are clear on the goal as to why we are having this in the first place. Okay. The next one is the reality. So once we've established the goal, the purpose for the meeting, the coaching session, then we can have a look at the reality. All right. So what is happening on the ground in itself? So this is where we ask the what, when, where, and the who questions. Right. So get back to reality, look at the facts, and see things objectively. All right, so allow both sides to slow down and think more deeply. So this is where you encourage the person to just take a few moments to catch their breath, settle down, um, and then start to paint a picture of what's going on. Right, so if it's for example, once again, if you're in your marketing department and if there's a data breach, then it's kind of like a crisis. So just look at the reality of the situation. So ask the what. So what actually happened? What is the extent of the damage? When did it happen? All right, so where did it happen? So which of our data centers got breached or attacked, and then who was there? So who came across this? Who found this out? Who was it reported to? Who was aware of this? And then who was involved in the whole process? All right, so and then who can actually help to solve this? So just be very, very objective. All right, so the keyword here is objective, right? So see things, talk about things objectively, especially if it's a if it's regarding a crisis or something not too good. Try we need to be aware that we do not end up playing the blame game or finger pointing. All right, so especially when we ask the who questions, we just want to speak objectively as to like who are the individuals present or involved. That's all. All right, we're not saying that that's their fault or we put all of the blame on them. All right, so it's just looking at things objectively. Okay, so what are some of the key things we need to know? What might we be missing? What is actually happening? Okay, so this is where we actually talk about the reality that is in front of us. Okay, then the next one, options. All right, so options are pretty much like what are some of the next steps which we can take. All right, so are there any alternatives? Are there any viable opportunities for us? What is the way out for this? What are some of the possibilities? So try to avoid binary options or zero-sum games. So what we mean by this is try to avoid the situation where it's either A or B. And then if you do A, you lose B and vice versa. All right, so this is where give everyone space to be imaginative and to just open up their minds. Right, so one helpful question which we can ask is, if we had a magic wand and can do anything about the situation, what would we do? So for example, if you're having a coaching session with one of your marketing officers, you can ask them like, if we can do anything to increase our market share, increase our brand presence, increase our customer satisfaction scores, what are some things which you'll do? You know, if money is not the issue, if resources is not the issue, what can we do to create a very delightful customer campaign or customer experience? Right, so go crazy. So list as many options, as many possibilities as possible. All right, then after that, start to cull them together. Okay, so this is the options piece. And then last but not least, in the coaching framework is will. So GROW, W is will. So there are two components to this. So will it could mean what will they do? Okay, so what can we do? What are we going to do about this situation? So come up with a specific action plan. All right, what are the next steps? What are some tangible actions which we can take? And then, so will has two meanings. The first one is what will they do? And then the second meaning is will as in willpower, right? So how much will do they have? So how much willpower? So are they driven and motivated enough to take action? Are they sitting on the fence? Are they reluctant? Are they enthusiastic? Are they passionate? Or are they hesitant? Okay. Are they interested or are they merely committed? Sorry, are they merely interested or are they fully committed? Do they believe in the possibility and also in themselves? Do they see the worth in the strategy in itself? Do they see the results worth pursuing? All right. And then if there isn't any buy-in, or if there isn't strong conviction here, and if you feel that the person is still very uncertain, umming and ahhing and all that, then what we can do is to cycle back to the previous steps in the grow model. So go as far back as identifying the goals, going through the reality, looking at the options, and then coming back to the will. Right. So if they're not sold on the marketing plan, right? So then spend some time to dig it a little bit deeper with them. Okay. Okay. Cool. So the last section over here are best practices. So once we've talked about the growth framework, we talked about the 4 styles of coaching, and these are some things to bear in mind when you are actually delivering the session with your direct reports. Okay. The first thing to bear in mind is that it is you with them. All right. It is not you versus them. It is all about taking a collaborative stance. All right. It is not competing with them. We are all in this together. We are all in the same team. We're on the same boat. Okay. So it's how you can help them as you go along. So remind ourselves to always come from a position of service and empowerment, because remember the foundation of coaching is to unlock and unleash the person's potential so that they can perform at their best, right? So we are all here to serve and to enable them so that they can become the best selves, right? And then the next thing is it's a two-way street. All right. So as much as they are learning from you, you are learning from them as well. So there is mentoring, and then we know that there is also reverse mentoring, because as much as we might be very experienced and knowledgeable in our fields, there is also a lot of things which we can learn from, for example, like the juniors in our team, the interns, the graduates, the younger generation, because they are definitely able to see things with fresh eyes. They're able to come in with new perspectives, things which we might never have known existed. All right, so that is why we saw the picture of the truck with the blind spots. So as much as we are helping them uncover their blind spots, they are also doing it for us, revealing things which we might have missed out along the way. All right, so very important. Be humble, be teachable. All right, leave our egos at the door. Don't get in their way. All right, so this is the humanistic element of coaching. Be yourself. All right, allow people to come as they are. Be human. Be respectful. Everyone is imperfect. Everyone has baggage. Everyone has issues. And we are all here to learn from one another. Okay, which brings us to this point. It's really apt. So go from know it all to learn it all. Sometimes we think that we need to be the experts, but it's time and time again, life will show us that we won't have all the answers. All right, the world is always changing. The landscape is always shifting. So whatever roadmap we have right now, whatever rule book we have right now, will have to be rewritten soon enough. All right. So, and it's up to us to figure things out as we go along. So it is perfectly okay if we don't have all the answers. So we will seldom or never have all the answers. Be okay with that. Learn and figure things out as we go. So it is perfectly fine to admit that you're not an expert in this, or to just be honest and say that this is the first time I'm encountering this situation. What do you think about this? Or what can we do about this? What do we know about this? What can we learn from this? Okay. And then this one, learn how to suspend and consider seemingly contradicting ideas. So this is a very interesting point. So we don't just want diversity in terms of people from different backgrounds, people from different industries as well. We also want diversity in terms of our thoughts and our ideas. All right. So sometimes it pays to have conflicting or contradicting ideas suspended in your head at the same time. Let me give you an example. If we want to reach a higher level of success, we need to be comfortable in being uncomfortable. So be comfortable when you're uncomfortable, and be uncomfortable if you're too comfortable. All right. So be comfortable when you are, be comfortable in when you are not comfortable, and start to be uncomfortable when you are too comfortable. Sounds like a paradox, right? Yeah. So what it essentially means is we need to embrace discomfort, stepping out of our comfort zones, pushing boundaries, pushing ourselves, right? But also on the flip side, the other side of the coin, if we are too comfortable with our ways of working, with our ways of living, then we need to start to nudge ourselves. We need to start to be a bit uncomfortable, because we might be slipping into complacency or resting on our laurels, right? So learning how to disrupt ourselves so that we are always on the cutting edge, right? Always keeping ourselves on our toes. Okay. The next one is provide psychological safety. So we want to create a safe space where people can just come as they are. Very, very important, all right? So where no one needs to put on a front, a mask, or a facade, where we have permission from each other to be open and transparent, all right? To provide constructive feedback and criticism. Don't take things personally, all right? There's always room for improvement. We all have something to learn from each other, right? And also to have some space for innovation and experimentation, right? So because this is how we can actually advance as a civilization, when we start to push the envelope and challenge our boundaries. And then to have acceptance for failure and mistakes, because that's the best learning opportunities, all right? So do not frown at failures or mistakes, all right? So the only problem with failures and mistakes is if we fail to take away the learning point, all right? If we fail to learn the lesson, then that is a problem if we keep making the same mistakes over and over again. But if we make mistakes because we're doing things for the first time and we realize the lesson, then that is a golden opportunity, all right? Okay, so provide psychological safety. Very important. The next one is building up your people skills. So learning how to discern people. All right. I won't talk too much about psychology today, but whenever you speak to people, whenever you observe people, listen to their conversations, listen to what they say, what they do, how they carry themselves, and all that, and then you will realize that everyone has something that they want, something they need, they value, they fear, they love, they hate, they are hiding, they are craving for, they are looking forward to, something which they dread, they don't really like, things they get annoyed at, things that they are bothered with, and also things which they carry as baggage. All right. So whenever you're coaching someone and they say that, I'm having a tough time, or I just don't want to do this job, I don't want to go into the customer meeting, I really hate presentations and all that, rather than criticizing that behavior in itself, start to unpack the root causes, because that statement or that behavior might only be the symptom of something much deeper. So maybe that there is something which they are dreading. Maybe it reveals a deeper fear or a lack or an insecurity, and all that. So this is something to bear in mind as we have dialogues and conversations with others. Okay, and last but not least, come up with an action plan. Hope is not a strategy. Hope is an expectation of something worthwhile that's going to be happening. All right. But hope in itself, it is not a strategy. A strategy is a strategy. All right. So what we want to do is to work together with the mentee and to come up with concrete action and to take concrete action despite not having all of the information. All right. So because we will never know all, we will never have full visibility on the landscape which we are in. Right? So whether it's the commercial landscape, whether it's the financial landscape, whether it's on the business side of things, we won't know everything. All right. So, but with regards to limited information, what can we do with what we have? Okay. Then you want to go to tracking progress, checking in, identifying insights and learnings, like we mentioned, and also to course correct. So if we feel that something is not right, something is not on track, adjust accordingly. Okay. And then last but not least, to focus on things that matter and things that we can control. All right. Because there's a lot of things happening in the world. There are a lot of things that are beyond our control. There's a lot of negativity, skepticism, and all that. So if we are not careful, we can go into a negative downward spiral, right? And things get haywire and all that. So focus and anchor ourselves on things that really matter and things that are within our influence. So control the controllables, work out something together, check in your progress, and measure your progress as you go along.